Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, Eleanor Hayes Merritt is a Wexford woman who has spent 26 years with tech giant Oracle. Eleanor, you are the Senior Vice President of Oracle, a leading IT and services company. You are now residing in California, but you actually hail from Wexford town.
That's right, yes. I grew up in Wexford, went to the Fife School, went to the Loretto Convent, and my family, I've still family in Wexford, and I come back on a regular basis. Was just back in August.
And what career path did you follow that brought you from the sunny southeast to California?
Well, I've worked with Oracle, as you mentioned. I've worked with them ever since I graduated college. So I went to DCU and I studied computer applications. And at the time I was graduating, they had the usual college recruiting process, and Oracle came along. They were starting a new office in Dublin. And so I was actually recruited to work in Germany, much to my surprise. And so I spent 5 years there in Germany, and then I came out to the States, and I've worked my way up through various positions now to where I am today.
And of course, Oracle is a company that needs no introduction, but perhaps you can provide us with a brief overview about the type of infrastructure and software which it provides to client companies.
Yes, so Oracle, I suppose if you're just, a consumer, a regular computer user, you may not be so familiar with Oracle, but it's very well known in the business software area. So it's best known for its database systems. So any time you need to store data in any structured way, then the vast majority, like 9 times out of 10, an Oracle database will be used for that. So all the big banks, all the financial services, the healthcare companies, the pharmaceuticals, education, governments, everybody's using Oracle databases. And over the years, then Oracle's also added to their repertoire. They've now got applications, so human resources applications, things that run payrolls, financial applications, healthcare applications. They also have middleware software for, say, security and for developing new software. Lately, they've become a cloud infrastructure provider as well. So you can run all kinds of software on Oracle infrastructure.
And as you said, you've been working with Oracle for 26 years now. The technology landscape is renowned for its seismic shifts. But what is the greatest advancement that you've witnessed during your time with Oracle?
That's a very interesting question. Because there's always changes happening, right? And, because there's always changes happening, and you're in the middle of it, you kind of go, maybe it wasn't quite so seismic. But I suppose the biggest one that's influenced us day to day and how we work has been moving to a cloud, our infrastructure. So that, we run all kinds of software on our own infrastructure, and that's really changed the culture of the company about ownership and so on. So, whereas before we would just give our software to customers and make sure, they would figure out how to work it and run it. And now we have to do all of that and make sure that works reliably across thousands of different systems and at scale. So that's been the biggest one for me.
What does your own role as Senior Vice President now look like on a day-to-day basis?
So I have 3 major responsibilities. I'm responsible for customer support, for database, and for middleware. I am also responsible for our identity management technology development. And then I have a team that does site reliability engineering for part of our cloud. So day to day, it's quite varied.
And Eleanor, of course, problem solving goes hand in hand with your role on a day-to-day basis. What process do you follow when it comes to solving problems?
That's a really good question. I think it's really important to make sure you have all the facts. And that's a lot harder than it sounds, because people tend to be biased, and if you're working with a customer, for example, on a problem they reported, they will swear up and down that they changed nothing and it's all Oracle's problem, and you can go off on the wrong path with that sort of thing. And then sometimes you'll find out a week or two later that maybe that person you spoke to wasn't aware of some other changes that went on in their company that did affect what happens on their side and caused the call to Oracle. So, I was saying to my boss last week, the only things that are true really are log files and architecture diagrams. It's very, very hard to rely on what people will tell you, when you're trying to solve problems. And there's also like this confirmation bias. Sometimes, somebody with authority or who's very confident says something, everybody believes them, right? So, and then you go off down the wrong path there too. So the more we can get from a machine when it comes to solving problems, the more likely that we're going to come up with the right answers.
So you ensure that you collect as much of the facts as you possibly can to start analysing those.
Yes.
And then where do you go in terms of solving the problem from there?
There's all matters of problems, that's, say, a technical problem. Then there's problems with, how people work together. You're trying to get something done, with another group, and they don't want to do it. Maybe they have different priorities, or they don't think what you're asking for is important, and you do. And so then there's a certain amount of convincing that has to go on, right, so that you can get what you want. And sometimes that means go talking to their leadership and so on. And so, and then there's sometimes, you've got an unhappy customer, and it's figuring out what it was that led to that, and listening to them and empathizing with them, and trying to figure out ways that we can, bring them back to a place where they're satisfied with you. So, different ways, different problems require different approaches, right, to solving them. And you have to be ready to adapt and change according to what situation you're in.
And Eleanor, one other area that you're responsible for within Oracle is identity and access management development. Provide us with an insight into that specific area.
Well, anytime you log in, with a username or password into a particular application or app, you're using most likely an identity management function. And one of the things that identity management is probably best known for is what we call single sign-on. So if you were using, say, Facebook, you can use your Facebook login sometimes to access other apps, right? You get prompted for that, or you cannot use your Google login to access them. And sometimes that you can actually do payments using your Facebook information. And so it's making sure all that information is secure, highly secure, but also it can be shared in a secure way across multiple applications. So that's the biggest area, I think, of that identity is known for. The other one, it would be multi-factor authentication. So when you sign into an application, sometimes it'll send you like a one-time PIN on your iPhone, on your phone, and so you have to enter that as well, so it can really prove it's you. So those are the things that day-to-day people would know identity management.
Eleanor, of course, in that particular area, people have gone to a stage now where they're afraid to click on any link, whether it's a link that comes through by text or by email. They're almost afraid to answer their phone because of the range of spam calls that are coming through. You spoke there about multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, as most people would know it as. Where do you see this going over the coming years? Because people are fearful of their security being compromised. Where are we going to see this go from here?
Well, one thing I think is it's going to go away over time is passwords, right? Passwords are just generally a bad idea. a password system can get hacked, and we all know, some people's information has been hacked, their passwords have been hacked, and they can get access, a malicious user can get access to all their accounts and cause all kinds of damage. And then people forget their passwords, and or else they use the same password all over, and it's just a bad practice. So I think we'll see more and more that different mechanisms for authentication will be used. So biometric authentication, like face recognition or, fingerprint recognition, those will be more the way that we will use to get into systems. But of course, there's hardware limitations to that. Like, not everybody today has a system that's going to allow facial recognition or fingerprint recognition. So until we phase those out, it's we're still reliant on the password to some extent, right? So, but I do think, the password is the big one that has to go away. And then just in general, there has to be, there's a notion of zero trust. Every single layer of interaction in a system has to have security built in, from the network, to, just the software itself, to authentication. Every single piece has to have security checks built into it. You cannot assume that they can't be attacked or hacked, and that's where, like you said, there's a huge amount of work going on in the industry these days to continuously enhance the security of what we use software for.
In a related topic, you would have seen Mark Zuckerberg in the past week speaking about his Ray-Ban Stories smart glasses, saying that they're going to be the replacement for the mobile phone. What are your thoughts on that?
I was just thinking about that. I think it's, who knows? I think it's an interesting idea, because I was thinking myself there that, things like credit cards and, bringing those around with you everywhere you go, it's such a pain. And then when you lose it, you've got to go and, reset all your accounts to take from your new credit card number and all of that. And why can't you just, again, use sort of physical characteristics, biometric characteristics of a person to do things like make payments without having to carry things like a credit card or a mobile phone around with you. Now, I mean, that's one thing about it. But of course, I think one of the reservations people would have about these glasses is like, people will be uncomfortable, like if somebody's spying on them, or there's privacy concerns, and that always follows Mark Zuckerberg around everywhere he goes. It's been the curse of the Facebook and world. It's like it's around privacy. Now he vows he's trying to take that more seriously, but I think he's going to have a job convincing the regular people that he really is.
But then, Eleanor, you'll have many of the digital marketing experts, such as Gary Vaynerchuk in the US, saying that the consumer generally has no problem trading their privacy for content.
And I see that even in my own behavior, right? When it comes to ads, you kind of want to get ads for things that you're interested in. And when, something comes up that you're really not interested in, you get very irritated. But when it is something that you like, you might even buy that thing, even though you mightn't have been planning to do it. So it makes a lot of sense from the business perspective, and as an end user, you're not so bothered by it.
If Eleanor was after walking out the gate of Loreto College in 2021 after completing her Leaving Cert, and she was embarking on a third-level college degree, what IT-related degree would you be focused on this time round?
Well, I don't regret going down the computer science road, and I think that's a really good foundation to get into. I think since I'm very involved in the cybersecurity business, it's also would be a great area to get into if you want to specialize more in the cybersecurity side of software and infrastructure. So yeah, I would recommend that.
And Eleanor, what sacrifices did you need to make along the way in order to reach the role of Senior Vice President of Oracle?
I think moving to the US was certainly, it played a big part, I think, honestly, in getting me the opportunities. When you're at the headquarters of a company, there's more opportunities, I would think, to advance. Not to say that when you're working in more regional office you can't advance, but it's just harder. There are fewer openings. So being away from my close family has been a big sacrifice over the years. Then, when my second child was born, I spoke with my husband about him staying home with the kids. And he has been a stay-at-home dad now ever since my son was about 6 months old. And that's been a big sacrifice for him, but I think it works well for our family dynamics. When the kids come home from school, there was always a parent there to, help them and just give them that consistent lifestyle. And it, I think it just took the pressure off of me as well. But, it has been a sacrifice because, if ever I feel like I need a break or something, it's like, well, no, I can't. I just got to keep going, right? And there's been times when I've been traveling a lot and I don't see my children, and that's been hard. But now that the pandemic, I've got the chance to spend a lot more time with them. So there's been pluses around that as well. So yeah, I think nobody has it, perfect all the time. So I think I've been very blessed and very fortunate in many ways.
And finally, Eleanor, if anybody listening to this morning's show wants to follow that IT career path that you've taken and would like to end up in a high-powered job like you in the US, what advice have you got for them?
I'd say just go after your dreams, It's not straightforward. I'd be the first to admit that. It's, you'll have setbacks and it's not all a breeze. But keep going. Every time you have a setback, it's something to learn from and grow stronger from. And the whole field, if you love learning, things are changing so much all the time. There's always something to learn. You'll never get bored. So I think it's a great career for somebody who likes to be, have his surprises and new paths open up all the time and see new things happening all the time.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Eleanor Hayes Merritt, Senior Vice President at Oracle. And it's great to see Eleanor flying the flag for Wexford in the tech capital of the world.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast.